Hello, I'm Gil Zilkha. Welcome back to my channel, Essential Classical Music, where we look at the best recordings of the classical music repertoire. This video is taken out of my larger video on the major chamber works. I hope you enjoy it. Now we come to the chamber music of Brahms. Now, in my previous videos, I've talked about oeuvres or pantheons of works. Like, for example, when you talk about the symphonies and you get to Beethoven or you get to Mahler, you get to these giants. We talk about string quartets. We were just talking about the Beethoven. I think for chamber music in general, Brahms is just its own big thing. It really is, you could spend a whole month just listening to Brahms chamber works. It's not even the volume. There's a couple of dozen of them. There's about 24. But it's the consistency of them. They're just so good. It's some of the best stuff Brahms did. It's very melodic. It's got his wonderful rich harmonies. It's also got a lot of those dance rhythms, like you get in the Hungarian dances, for example, and a lot of his music, you get those syncopated rhythms. You have that throughout these works. They're just really wonderful and a really great way to appreciate chamber music in general. So I'm going to start first with what might be his most popular chamber work overall, and that's the Clarinet Quintet. This is a work that he wrote fairly late in life. Like Mozart, it was inspired because he heard a clarinetist. This clarinetist's name was Richard Mühlfeld, and he just loved the sound. I think Brahms had even at that point just given up on he wasn't really wanting to compose anymore at all. And then he heard this clarinetist, and he retired to Bad Ischl outside of Salzburg and sat down to writing both a clarinet trio and this lovely clarinet quintet. And you can tell what it was that attracted him to that sound, that kind of mellow, relaxed sound. And the clarinet quintet opens with this beautiful melody in the strings. Din da 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 din di da 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 di da di dan di dan di dan di dan. Then the clarinet comes in. Do 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 di da 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 da. Again, one of those beautiful Brahms melodies. And then the second movement is this really autumnal, just this gorgeous kind of, there's this stillness in character to it. It's just, there's sort of a calming effect to the sound of the clarinet, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. And it's a really popular work for good reason. My top choice for the Clarinet Quintet is this version from 1964 with Gervais de Paye, English clarinetist, and the Milos Ensemble of London. It's pretty good sounding. It's very present and full. And mainly the reason I recommend this version is just the artistry of the group. They have that Brahmsian warmth, and the way they move together, it really works well. It's gorgeous playing, and really a great way to get to know the work. Now, for something a little bit newer in digital sound, I recommend this one from German clarinetist Karl Leister. This is with the Brandis Quartet. This was recorded in the mid-90s. Leister had a little bit more of a mellow tone, so it even has more of that sort of meditative quality. And the Brandis Quartet, they really play well as well in terms of the warmth and moving together and the gorgeousness of that slow movement. So this is also a great way to get to know the work. I would recommend another Leister version from right around the same time with the Leipzig Quartet if you want something with just a little bit more zip to it. They're both excellent. Of course, the quintet, it's more autumnal, but it has its quick sections as well. And some people, some people feel that slow movements can drag and they like a little bit more movement with it. So you might prefer this version. They're both recommendable. Another excellent version in digital sound is one from 1986 with another English clarinetist, Thea King. This is with the Gabrielli Quartet. And this is just a gorgeous recording. Beautifully played, beautiful sounding. It's that Hyperion sound. They always did a great job with the clarity and fullness. And King plays with just wonderful artistry, wonderful taste. It's just really beautiful. In the Gabrielli Quartet, they're very expressive. So another excellent way to know the quintet. Incidentally, we'll come to it, but if you want both of those clarinet works together, this does come with a clarinet trio as well. Those two works that he wrote together. And then finally, I want to recommend this vintage version, another British clarinetist. This one from 1937. Reginald Kell is the clarinetist, and he's playing with the Bush Quartet. Goes without saying, with the Bush Quartet, they did wonderful Brahms recordings. They have wonderful interpretive insights, beautifully expressive. It's a little bit actually on the faster side, for example, in that first movement. Really moves with a lot of dexterity. And that beautiful warmth in the slower sections. This is a very famous interpretation of this work, despite the slightly dimmer sound, or a real classic, one that I particularly love. All right, so if that's the Clarinet Quintet. If that's not his most popular chamber work, then maybe the Piano Quintet is. They're both kind of up there. The Piano Quintet, if anything, it's a little bit more epic, a little bit more dramatic. It really shows that side of Brahms. And there's a lot of pathos in this work that you can find. And my top choice for this one, it's a slightly more vintage choice than I normally recommend as a first choice, but it's so good that I just can't help recommending it. The Hollywood Quartet version with Victor Aller. He's incidentally the brother of the cellist Eleanor Aller. I think she's the cellist. Is she the cellist or the second violinist? Let's see, where is she? Yeah, she's the cellist. Incidentally, Hollywood Quartet, headed by Felix Slotkin, who is or was the husband of Eleanor Aller. So Victor is Felix's brother-in-law. And some of you probably know Leonard Slotkin, famous conductor of the later half of the 20th century. He's the son of Felix and Eleanor. So all in the family. I've said before about Hollywood Quartet, Warner, when are you going to put out a Hollywood String Quartet box? It's long overdue. They made so many fabulous recordings. And I would put at the top of the heap this set of the piano. It's got the piano quintets as well as the piano quartets and the Schumann piano quintet. They just really dig into this music, and they've got this kind of a vintage romantic vibe about them, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's never just everything for technical sake. They obviously love the music. They play with wonderful expressivity, wonderful drama, wonderful sensitivity. The sound it's from 1954, so it is mono. It's a little bit scratchy sounding in the violins. But it's such a great interpretation that I really have it as my top one if you're wanting to love the piano quintet. But there are several excellent versions. If you want a little bit better sound in stereo, we have this one from 1963 with Rudolf Serkin and the Budapest Quartet. You can't go wrong with this group. This is a very assertive, dramatic version. Just wonderfully played, wonderfully recorded. Definitely could also be a reference version. And then for something a little newer, not quite digital, but getting close to digital 1979, is the Quartetto Italiano with fellow Italian Maurizio Pollini. This is a really dramatic, assertive version, beautifully played, wonderfully recorded, really brings home the drama of the work, so you can't go wrong with this. Now for something a little bit more, I would say it has the drama, but it also has that sort of aristocratic beauty as well, is this one from 1966. Arthur Rubinstein, that gentleman of the piano, with the American Guarneri Quartet, fairly well recorded. There's more of that sense of nobility to this version. It's really beautiful. It shows you another side of the piano quintet. Very famous version for good reason. And then finally, I want to recommend, just like with the clarinet quintet, we have a Busch quartet version from the 30s. This time, again, with Rudolf Serkin. This is 1938. Serkin a little bit more youthful here. I mean, he's wonderful in the Budapest version as well. But it's mainly the insights of the Busch quartet that you get, the really go for Baroque emotional, drama that they bring. That despite the limited sound, although it's pretty clear, is an excellent version as well. Okay, so that's the piano quintet. Now, Brahms cut his teeth on the piano, so there's going to be more than just one piano work for chamber. And sure enough, we have a set of 3 piano quartets. I love these works. They're fairly long. I mean, all 3 of them, they're about the length of, just about the same length as his concertos and symphonies. The first one has this wonderful final movement. I talked about how the rhythmicness of Brahms is something you really hear a lot in his chamber music. That one starts out with this dun 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 dun, and then when you get to the very end, the coda in the final movement, all of a sudden he returns to that theme, but it's much faster and it's just exhilarating. It's really one of the more thrilling moments in all of chamber music. And then the second piano quartet, it's also a long, long work, but it's full of wonderful melodies and it's very rhythmic and dance-like. And then the third quartet, it's very dramatic. The second movement is wonderful. It goes dee-dong, and there's da-da-da, da-da-da. I can't imitate it exactly, but it's very rhythmic and exhilarating. So for these, again, like I was saying, the piano quintet, I have to recommend this set, the Hollywood Quartet. These are slightly better recorded. They're actually in stereo in 1956. And they just give you this interpretation that just sounds more like, from the horse's mouth. They just know the music so well, and they're just able to take off and go in an interpretive direction that really brings home all those wonderful qualities of the music. So this is my top choice. However, I do want to mention a newer recording from 2005 with Marc-Andre Hamelin on piano and the Leopold Trio, beautifully recorded and wonderfully played too. It's a little bit more suave. You really hear the beauty of the music. For example, there's this gorgeous kind of lilting slow movement, the second piano quartet, that just sounds gorgeous here. It's one of those lullaby-like rocking type things that Brahms would write. And so the beauty of the playing and the beauty of the sound, if you love the quartets, you're not going to want to miss this. Not to mention Hamelin adds in what for me is one of my favorite piano sets of all time, the Brahms's Opus 117, which are gorgeous. So he adds those as well. All right, so that's the quartets. But we also have 3 piano trios. And we talked about the clarinet quintet, and the piano quintet is maybe his most popular chamber works overall. I would add in there the first piano trio. In fact, I would say as a gateway to Brahms's chamber music, this may be the first one I would start with, just because he has those beautiful melodies. Right at the beginning, it starts with bum 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 be dun dun din da da ba da 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 ni da. Again, I'm kind of approximating how it goes, but it's just really beautiful. And then it's also got this wonderful lush melody in the middle of the second movement as well. All 4 movements are just wonderful. And then you've got the second piano trio and the third, which have a lot of wonderful rhythmicness to them, if that's an adjective. It's just really wonderful stuff. And we have a recording of this one that fortunately comes in very good sound, 1968 Decca sound, that really is one of the classic Brahms chamber work recordings. This is with the pianist Julius Katchen, A wonderful Brahms pianist. He recorded actually all of the Brahms piano works. And then Joseph Suk, the grandson of the composer, and Janos Starker on cello. And this is just wonderfully lush, wonderfully beautiful, just romantic in the best way. They exercise just excellent musical judgment. I can't think of a better way to get to know these works. However, they are beautiful works, so you may not want to restrict yourself just to one recording. We have this one from 1972, spread onto 2 different CDs, but it's with Arthur Rubinstein, Henrik Schering on violin, and Pierre Fournier on cello. So 3 heavy hitters, if there ever was that for a chamber music set of recordings. And they bring all of their insight. Of course, I've talked before about the nobility of Rubinstein. They really do a great job of underlining everything here. All those romantic, beautiful, lush melodies, exercising wonderful taste. And then for a 1972 recording, it's very good and full and clear as well. So that's recommendable. And then finally, I want to recommend one more for that first piano trio, more of a vintagey version from 1952. This one is with the pianist Myra Hess, Isaac Stern on violin, and Pablo Casals on cello. This is recorded at Casals' Protest Festival, which was a festival that took place in the French Pyrenees and produced wonderful concerts. Probably, I'm sure most of them were not recorded, but we were lucky to have some of them. This one, I don't know if it's a live recording or if it was like something they recorded like on site or something, because I don't hear much audience noise. It's a pretty clear recording, even though it's a little bit more limited compared to a full studio. But what you get here is again, chamber music. A group of friends getting together and just enjoying the music. And this version of the Piano Trio number 1, it's very probing. It's very insightful. And if you love the work, it's also one that you're going to want to hear. Okay, so now let's move on to, there's so many more to go for Brahms. The next set I'm going to talk about is his 2 string sextets. These works, as you might imagine, they almost sound like string orchestras. It's a little different than it really makes it different when you add those extra 2 string players. And these are gorgeous works. The first one is really beautiful. It's got this wonderful second movement, especially, and then the second one is one of my favorite Brahms chamber works overall. It starts out with the strings are kind of moving, na 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 na, and it goes dan din dan. It's kind of lifts you into this different place, and then the second movement, the strings are kind of like real high, like it sounds really evocative, and it reminds me almost like something you'd hear from Tchaikovsky or Sibelius. It's really wonderful stuff, and we're lucky to have this recording, very famous, from 1988 in very good sound, again on Hyperion, with the Raphael Ensemble. Just beautifully played, beautifully recorded. Everything is just beautifully judged. It really helps you appreciate these works. So this is kind of the proverbial digital classic. Really one of the most highly recommended Brahms chamber recordings that you can find. And then let's take off one string player and now move on to the string quintets. Also 2. And these are just, the proverbial Brahms, the warmth, the inventiveness. It's Brahms, he just had all these wonderful ideas. it's just the chamber music is just like this endless potpourri of goodies. And this is one, again, that we have a really nice digital recording that I can recommend. This one is from the mid-90s. The Hagen Quartet, supplemented by violist Gerard Causset. Really lush, beautiful, tastefully done, everything very well phrased, and beautifully recorded. It really helps you appreciate these works. Just wonderful listening to, just pop in for a nice afternoon. All right, so now let's talk about the string quartets. Okay, now he wrote 3 string quartets. And this is the irony about Brahms. I talked about how his chamber music as a whole, I think of, for me, is just in all of classical music, or sorry, chamber music is sort of like the thing to maybe look at, like you could spend a whole month with. But the irony is that the combination that is your most like stereotypical chamber music combination, the string quartet, that's the one where I think Brahms maybe struggled a little bit more. It's maybe the black sheep of his chamber music output. And the sort of proverbial, explanation is that he may have been trying too hard, just like he did with the symphonies, feeling the shadow of Beethoven. In fact, the first string quartet it's in the key of C minor, just like his first symphony was in the key of C minor, which is a key that you often associate with Beethoven. The thing about the string quartets of Brahms, they're compared to a lot of his other output, which, like I was just talking about the string quintets, it makes for, it's very pleasant listening. It's kind of easy to just kind of readily absorb. The string quartets are a little bit more dense. There's a lot of drama. It's a lot of busyness, and that's why you almost get the feeling that he was maybe felt people peering over his shoulder from the past. I would say that the third string quartet, it almost feels like maybe he relaxed a little bit. Maybe he went back to Haydn for some inspiration here, because there's a little bit more of a lightness to it. Where he's just letting the music kind of run and do its thing rhythmically. But the thing is, the string quartets, they might be harder to get into, but I think they are rewarding works once you get over that hump. It's still Brahms. Maybe it's just something you have to be in the right mood for, but it's still wonderful writing. And my top recommendation for these works is a fairly recent recording from the mid-2000s, the Emerson Quartet. And I think the Emerson Quartet does an excellent job of selling these works, if you will. For one thing, they're just really wonderful to listen to. They're immaculately virtuosic, very polished, beautiful tones, beautifully recorded. They kind of put maybe kind of a shiny light on these works that maybe is something that they need. I really come away just really enjoying the quartets when I hear it in a recording like this. Now, I also want to mention a recording that is coupled with one of my piano quintet recommendations, and that's this one, the Budapest Quartet from 1963. Of course, the Budapest, one of the all-time great interpreters of the German Romantics. So you would want to hear them in Brahms, and they bring that here. They bring the drama, the emotion, the interpretive insights. So this is also a great way to appreciate these works. However, I have to mention one of my olden day favorites from a quartet most people probably would not have heard of. This is the Léner Quartet, a Hungarian quartet, and this was recorded in the late 20s, early 30s. And this is just one of those like really old recordings that sounds kind of like more from the horse's mouth. You can hear the identification with the music. They do things instinctively that you won't necessarily hear nowadays. Of course, it's very old sound, so you have to get past that. It's a little bit noisy, but especially for works like the string quartets, which can be a little bit hard to get into, it's really something to hear a recording like this where you can hear the identification with the music in a really kind of a stereotypical late romantic style. I really think it helps them, and I really enjoy these. All right, so that's the string quartets. Now, one of my absolute favorite Brahms chamber works, the horn trio. Wonderful! What a wonderful work this is. All four movements just really, really strong. It's a combination of horn, violin, and piano. One of my favorites is the third movement. It starts with the piano kind of rolling up. Boom, 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 boom. It's really cool. And it's just it's really kind of almost this eerie sounding movement. I mean, Brahms was just so inventive, and then the final movement is just real fun. It's like anyways, I can't imitate it exactly, but you get the picture. My top choice for this is one of the great horn players, especially of the recording era, Barry Tuckwell. However, this is a recording that you may not have heard of before. This one is from 1987. It's with Brenton Langbein on violin and Maureen Jones on piano. And here's the thing. Tuckwell was, of course, Australian. And these two were also Australian. And before Tuckwell was famous, he used to tour around in a trio. So they toured and played together for decades before they put this recording down. And I think that's part of what makes this recording such a success. It really works well. They bring out all the great aspects of the works wonderfully. They probably had played it together numerous times before this. And it's got excellent digital sound as well. So this is one of those kind of under the radar versions, even though it's got a famous name attached to it, that I think you really would really should look at if you want to learn the horn trio for the first time. Now, he did make a much more famous recording with a couple players who weren't slouches in their own right. He recorded it with Yitzhak Perlman and Vladimir Ashkenazy in 1968. Vintage Decca sound. All three of them in top form. You can't go wrong with this as well. Ashkenazy plays wonderfully dramatically, and Perlman brings that sweetness of tone and that wonderful musical judgment. So this one is a justly famous version. Now, another version I want to mention, and this one, I think it's the first time we've mentioned the Marlborough Festival. That was a festival in Vermont that brought together, again, these musical friends to make chamber music. This one is with Myron Bloom on horn, and then Michael Tree is the violinist. Incidentally, his name, Michael Tree, he was originally Michael Applebaum, but when he came to the States, his teacher, Ephraim Zimbalist, a great violinist, for marketing, he said, why don't you change it to something a little bit, maybe I would imagine, maybe it's like that Blazing Saddles thing where, too German, perhaps, I don't know. But anyways, he changed it from Applebaum to Tree. So that became his stage name. And then on piano, Rudolf Serkin, who was very active in the Marlborough Festival as well. And so it's a little bit rough sounding. This might have been a live concert because I recall that there's some extraneous noises, I think, as you're listening, but it's not too bad. But it's a really wonderful interpretation, wonderful warmth, obvious love for the music. So this is an excellent version. And then I also have to mention this sort of classic of the 30s. Once again, we go back to the Busch players. Adolf Busch, violin, Rudolf Serkin on piano, and Aubrey Brain on horn. If you recognize the Brain name, he was the father of the famous British horn player Dennis Brain. This is a wonderful version as well, very insightful. That slow movement is very lush and beautifully done, and they have loads of fun in that finale as well. Really exciting, and just such a great piece. I can't do with just one recording. So, all right. So there is the horn trio. Now, we mentioned before when we were talking about the clarinet quintet that he was inspired by Richard Mühlfeld to write a quintet. He also wrote at the same time a clarinet trio. And then later, he also wrote a couple of clarinet sonatas. So Brahms was really taking advantage of the clarinet's sonority and giving us masterpieces for that instrument. The trio is like the quintet. It's a little bit on the autumnal side. I would even say there's a little bit more variety to the trio. And then also the sonatas as well. There's a lot of skill that's required to really play these sonatas well. We have a recording, fairly recent, that combines all three of these works, the trio and the two sonatas. And that's from a group of Swedish players. Martin Frist on clarinet, Cello is Torleif the Dane, and Roland Pentinen is the pianist. I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. Beautifully played. First has a gorgeous mellow tone that's very seductive, and you can just listen to it for hours, and beautifully recorded as well. So this is really a fairly ideal way to get all three of these together. I do want to mention the recording I mentioned earlier for the quintet that's also coupled with the trio from Thea King. This is with Karina Georgian is the cellist, and the pianist is Clifford Benson. Beautifully judged, beautifully recorded on this Hyperion release. Thea King had this beautiful tone and wonderful artistry as well. So this is also a great way to hear the trio. And then finally for the sonatas, I also want to mention one more recording from Gervais de Pays, who I recommended for the clarinet quintet. This time he's accompanied on piano by Daniel Barenboim. So that's a really wonderful combination, and they both just exude wonderful artistry and judgment, just bringing out the dramatic parts and also those beautiful moments of stillness. The first sonata, the slow movement, is just so it's like dee da dee da 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 dee da. It's one of those things that almost kind of makes you feel whole kind of things. It's just really gorgeous. So anyways, wonderful recording as well. All right, so now let's stick with, we just have a few more sonatas now, both sets of two from Brahms, starting with the cello sonatas. And these are just really fantastic, gorgeous works. Again, I'm going to do the human cello thing and imitate the cello. At the beginning of the first one, it goes bin don da di don di da da di da di da 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 di. I'm starting to lose my voice, by the way, talking so much. But anyways, it's this beautiful mellow opening. And then it has these variations in the final movement. The piano, again, as always with Brahms works, the piano is always very active. And then the second cello sonata might be slightly more popular than the first one, although they're both wonderful works. It's a little bit more energetic and a lot of my rhythmic energy as well. Now, for this one, my top choice is the husband-wife duo from the late 60s. Again, Daniel Barenboim on piano, and this time Jacqueline Dupre on cello. Oh, this is just a beautiful recording. I love it. Dupre was such a unique artist, and the thing about her is she was so involved emotionally in what she was doing. You get the feeling with her that like nothing else matters or could matter in the world. It's just her and that cello, and then Barenboim matches her. And so for these works, these quintessential romantic works, I really think this is an excellent way to get to know them and to appreciate them. Now, another version I want to recommend from, obviously one of the great cellists is Pierre Fournier. And this is with Wilhelm Bachhaus, one of the great Brahmsian pianists. This is a little older. It's from the mid-50s. The sound is pretty good, though. Pretty good Decca sound. And Fournier just brings that poise that he has, that taste, a little bit more, I don't know if austere is the word, but he's a little bit more discipline, you might say, in the way he phrases, but it's also flexible and beautiful and just a wonderful way to hear these works as well. Now, another great cellist who put in his 2 cents a little bit later in life is Mstislav Rostropovich with Rudolf Serkin, and this is in digital sound. This is from 1983. I mean, look at Serkin. This is a 1983 recording. We just talked about his 1933 horn trio. So we've got Brahms chamber recordings spanning half a century with the same artist. That's really something. This version is more on the mellow side comparatively, I would say. It's not as assertively dramatic, but you get kind of a different side of it here, and you get that beautiful tone from Rostropovich, that wonderful artistry, the chemistry between him and Serkin in this recording is really wonderful. So again, it's a little bit different way to hear the works, and one that I think is really rewarding. And then finally, I have to mention this recording of just the second sonata with Pablo Casals. This is 1936, Mieczysław Horszowski. Like I said, the second is a little bit more animated and energetic, and Casals really brings it. He just really digs into the music. Of course, it's a little bit limited sound, but you want to hear these artists do their thing. So that is the cello sonata and cello sonatas. And then finally, I want to mention the violin sonatas. And actually, I said there's two of them. Actually, there's three of them, I should say. And these are just wonderfully lyrical works. You get that Brahms, gift for melody. The first sonata opens up with this theme that goes dun da dun da da dun. Dun da da dun, dun da da dun. It's just really immediately pulls you in, and then there's also there's Brahms's rhythmicness and so on. So it's just really wonderful violin works. My top choice for this one is a duo that comes from the trio we just talked about. Joseph Suk, violin, and Julius Katchen on piano. Very well recorded, 1967, and they just bring that wonderful romantic spirit to the music, the lushness and beauty of tone and wonderful phrasing. It's really an ideal way to hear these works for the first time. However, I also want to recommend this one, a little bit newer, from 1990. One of these beautiful sounding Hyperion releases. This is with Krysia Sostowicz on violin and Susan Tomes on piano. They incidentally belong to the group Domus, which has some other recordings that we're going to talk about later. This one there's this pristine beauty to it. It really helps you appreciate the beauty of the writing. Of course, it's got wonderful sound as well. It may be slightly more, a little bit more on the demure side compared to the Suk Katchen, but also very dramatic as well. So this is also one that I just wouldn't want to be without. It's really gorgeous. Now, I want to mention a few vintagey versions. Really, really older ones, but rewarding. This is coupled with that horn trio that I mentioned earlier with Adolf Busch and Rudolf Serkin. This is from the early 30s, and they bring their wonderful insights into the romantic repertoire. You really can't go wrong anytime you come across these Busch and Friends recordings. Busch just has that wonderful lushness to his tone and his imagination, so that's a great one. However, let me also mention that's just the first two sonatas, not the third one. However, for those first two sonatas, I also have to mention this one. This is my sort of desert island version, even though it's so old. This is with Tosca Seidel. And he's accompanied by Arthur Lesser on piano. These are from the late 20s, early 30s. And this is another one of those, it sounds like from the horse's mouth. His teacher, incidentally, was Leopold Auer, who was like a bigwig in the late 19th century. So he really, he's a creature of that time, and you can hear it. There's just this natural way that he phrases things that you just don't hear today. It's almost on the, you almost want to say, the schmaltzy side. Maybe that's why our modern era we've kind of gotten away from this, but it just sounds so natural and perfect for the repertoire. I just love it. Incidentally, there is a song that George Gershwin wrote. It goes Tosha, Misa, Yasha, Sasha. It's all four of them Russian Jewish violinists: Tosha Seidel, Misha Elman, of course, Jascha Heifetz, and then probably lesser known Sasha Jacobson. And it's just like, you can probably find it on YouTube. It's like, what is it? Mise. I can't remember the words. Like Misha, Yasha, Sasha, Tosha. Anyways, they're having fun. So that's cool. Anyway, so highly recommend this version if you love these works. And then, so these are for the first two sonatas. We also have an older recording of the third sonata I want to recommend, with Joseph Szigeti and wonderful Brahms pianist Egon Petri as well. Same qualities that I was just talking about, just that natural romantic feel for the music. The third sonata it's a little bit more virtuosic, I would say, than the first two. So Szigeti really plays the heck out of it. It's one that if you love the work, you're going to want to hear. And it's coupled here with his classic recording from 1928 of the Violin Concerto as well. All right, so that is Brahms. Did you see how long that took? Yeah, Brahms' chamber music. It's just it's a thing. It really is just a wonderful world of its own. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day and happy listening.